Welcome back, everyone. And we've got a session that's really, really exciting with three fabulous panelists. I'm calling them the culture vultures. They don't know that, but that's what they're about. And we're going to talk about, if remote working is the new normal, how do we maintain organisational culture? We've got three industry new luminaries from across the country. And so without further ado, let's meet them. So let me share a little bit about each and every one of them. So from the best in the West, that's you, Max, Chief Service Leader from HIF Australia. Max has been part of the team for about 6 months in an executive role as the Chief Service Leader. Prior to joining HIF, Max was the General Manager as part of the CBA Group, working for Bank West in a number of leadership roles across the retail division, and also specialised in the world of agile and business agility. Next, we have a very familiar face. Rachel Aziz is the Head of People, Performance and Culture at recoveriescorp. Rachel is a human resources professional with diverse experience in contemporary people-centric practices, including employee engagement, sustainable high-performance culture and employee experience. With a background in insurance and financial services industry, Rachel has been responsible for the end-to-end delivery of significant people programs internationally and here in Australia. And she's based in Melbourne, so she's having a party! Yay! And last but certainly not least is Gary, who's in the middle in South Australia, and he's the Head of Operations Services Centre, BGIS. Gary leads the Operations Shared Service function for BGIS, a global company managing over 30,000 properties. Gary oversees the key functions of help desk, accounts payable and vendor system support across the APAC footprint of BGIS. He has over a decade experience managing a diverse range of contact centres across facility and property management in Australia. So we have a number of questions that we're going to grill our panel on. And the first question is, how have you maintained organisational culture during the work from home period? And now that restrictions have eased, Rachel, you're right on the end of it, if you happen to be a date that has eased, how are you doing it now? So let me throw it open to the panel.
Yeah, Fiona, I'm happy to go first. So thank you for
the input,
and great to be here. Real privilege to be asked to be part of the panel as well. So thank you. It was really interesting actually because I started in HIF actually in the middle of COVID. So 1st of April, I began, and literally that was starting off working from home straight away. So there was obviously I couldn't do any intros in the office. It was all digital, obviously by meeting everybody very much obviously over video and the like, and that was really interesting. And actually HIF had never done really working from home before, so I think like many companies was forced into sort of doing it very quickly, which I think overall seemed to work really well. And certainly for me joining, I was made to feel very welcome, and actually spending a lot of time on video calls sort of with my team, meeting other various people from around the business was great. But I think that I was really impressed and pleasantly surprised at how quickly and nimble everybody sort of got into the flexibility of working from home, being forced to do so. But I think in terms of maintaining sort of organisational culture, it was obviously it was a challenge, but I think one that I felt everybody raised to really well. So it sort of forced, where you get team huddles that would normally happen in the office, and sometimes they'd happen, sometimes they wouldn't, due to how busy you may be and for whatever else. It forced us to have them every single day, to do the most important thing really was the mental health and wellbeing checks to make sure people are well, and we asked the cameras to be on so we can physically see people, and if they choose to turn them off, due to bandwidth challenges, whatever, throughout the meeting, fair enough. But at least we could see people and make sure everyone was okay. And I think actually what I could see, it really built the culture more than perhaps from what I've learned since being back into the office now, what it was like previously, because it was forcing people to have that time out, talk to each other, check in on each other, whereas sometimes in the office I think you don't necessarily do so much of that all the time, and we were being really deliberate about it. So I think certainly we saw, to start off with, and ongoing, that being deliberate about it, we saw some real benefits from it, and I think as I'm sure we'll hear from the others and later on in the conversation as well, how many people have loved the working from home, and obviously how do we sort of balance that between being in the office and now working from home as well.
Fabulous. Rach.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Max. absolutely. So mirroring some of what Max has already said, for us it was a real holistic review of what are the anchors of our culture. So what are the things that we need to mimic in this work from home environment, and that's always really challenging. The technology has been crucial for us. So understanding, you know, your context and operating rhythm, and as Max said, you know, those Monday morning huddles, make sure they continue. If you have a Friday quiz, keep that going. For us, it's really around the exposure of behaviours, and our leaders set those behaviours, and you have to put your leaders in front of people, and that's tough because our leaders are struggling too. You know, we're in lockdown, lovely lockdown Victoria for such a long time, but we've really put on our leaders. And, you know, even for me as the head of our people, this, you know, I have an open door policy. How do I mimic that in this work from home? So I have a people pulse meeting. People email me if they want to catch up, and I book 15 minutes coffee catch up with them. Alternatively, I have 3 people from across the organisation that I randomly catch up with each week just to keep a pulse on what's happening. And you've got to be really conscious and mindful around how do we protect the heartbeat of this culture and how do we keep this going. So your tech is really critical. We've also used a lot of the events that are happening externally. So we do a lot around CSR. So things like Movember, Are You OK There presents every September and is so relevant this year. So we actually had a lot of people that were really happy that they're connecting with their teams, you know, a lot of FaceTime, but they're missing those interactions with people that are outside of their immediate team. So how do we replicate that water cooler chat or the people in the tea room that you chat to all the time? So for Are You OK There, we asked everyone to book a 15-minute virtual catch-up, virtual, you know, lunchroom with someone outside of your team that you miss. And that was fantastic. So a couple of ideas there.
Fantastic. Gary, you're on mute, Gary.
Of course. We had $1 for every time I've heard that in the last 8 months. So I guess echoing a lot of what Rachel and Max said, but I think we had some quite specific things that we started with when we went to work from home, and we went to work from home from about the 5th of March. So, and we were probably only fully working from home till about June. So we had quite a short period. But we immediately implemented a number of, I guess, things that we wouldn't normally do. And that was, you know, monthly coffee mornings where a leader from, you know, within the operations center would guide a group of 4 or 5 around something fun to do off the phones, and like just, it could be a quiz, they did some online games, or just caught up and told each other about each other. And also as well, I think we deliberately made sure that it was different people from different departments so that they could interact. Obviously assisted on cameras where possible. It's amazing how many people get all of a sudden shy to people they work with every day, but which was a challenge, but people have been pretty good. I think as a that was kind of one of the ones. We also had we paired each person up with a buddy that they could pretty much call any time and just leave a message for their team leader within Teams and just say, I just need to have a quick 5 minutes with my buddy to just chat through things. And I think that's really helped as well. While I don't have any specific stats on that, you know, it was just kind of giving that framework that they may not necessarily thought of doing. And I think we've had quiz nights, we've had bingo with the boss, we've had a whole bunch of stuff done by our other larger companies. So stuff around Are You OK Day. CSR is really big at BGIS anyway. And we've tried to maintain a monthly CSR initiative even while we've been in lockdown, and in fact managed to raise over $7,000 in the operations center this year, which is our biggest amount ever. So it goes to show that people are still generous even in lockdown. So yeah, they're kind of just some of the things we've done, but we've had to adjust it as we go as well. Some things have been successful, some haven't been. And again, I guess echoing what Rachel said as well, leveraging off a lot of the groups that have been happening both within the Auscontact network and general networks within LinkedIn. There's been, you know, free things to attend to help with mental health. There's been a whole bunch of stuff that we've been able to leverage off, which has been really exciting to see that people have been really quite giving in this time and appreciating that everybody is actually in the same boat, essentially.
Thank you. So all of you have talked about what you did. So was it really easy? How difficult was it actually? Who wants to share their challenges?
I think I'm happy to go first with that one. But
Thanks,
I think
Gary.
In terms of the challenges, I think as a contact centre manager, as most of you out there probably will be or have been, you know, all contact centres have a certain amount of, I guess, newish staff that are fairly new to the workplace. And they usually start at the contact centre as their kind of first role, and they're kind of moulded during that time into what's expected in a workplace. And that has definitely been challenging in that we've had, you know, behaviours that we would normally manage in a normal contact centre environment become that much more difficult to manage, I guess, remotely, because you can't see what people are doing. So there's a certain amount of you're expecting people to be accountable and responsible, and unfortunately that's not always the case with all employees. So that has been difficult at times, and it's involved more sort of conversations, but also as well trying to understand that for some people the behaviours may be manifesting from other problems going on because of lockdown. You know, we've got people in the contact centre who have young children, and you know, during the time that they were trying to work, they're trying to school from home. In fact, my operations manager has 3 young children, and I think and luckily for her, she only had a week where she had to homeschool and try and work at the same time. And I can honestly say, when she came onto our normal daily stand-up at 10 a.m. the following Monday, she was like, never again. Because, like, it's just, and obviously she was in meetings with us and we could see them jumping around, and it's been incredibly stressful for a lot of people, particularly in Melbourne, you know, where they've had to deal with that for much longer. So I think the challenges really have been to make sure that you don't just set one policy or one program and then set and forget. You can't. You have to continually review with your leadership team, with the staff, and make sure that anything that's not working is taken off the board and we start again. So run it, doesn't work, pick up, move on, or keep it going or expand on it if it is really working. Thanks, Gary. Who'd like to share next? Max?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, look, I mean, Gary's done a fantastic summary there. Very, very similar challenges as well that we've faced. I think the new people absolutely echo again what Gary has said. But I think that the other challenge is we've obviously had people that didn't want to be working from home. They wanted to come into the office. They don't have necessarily perhaps the best home life, even, you know, in terms of who they're having to live with. I think as all of us probably find, we've got you know, there's different demographics that work for us. Some you know, happily married, really comfortable being at home, others that live with parents or siblings or friends living with them and trying to work as well has been very difficult for them. And I think that's the big challenge for us, is how do we keep them engaged, know that they've got the right level of support, and probably in terms of, you know, expectations, you know, that you know, certainly in terms of necessarily how much you're processing, how frequently you're talking to members, it's just demonstrating more flexibility and understanding around that, and probably having some more, being a bit more fluid in terms of the shift patterns, what that looks like. And as long as ultimately you're still doing as much as you can do and you've got the right intent, if perhaps you don't have the best day in terms of productivity, or you need a longer day, you know, you need to in and out schooling the kids and whatever else that's happened, then I think that's certainly an aspect that we've been a lot more, you know, flexible on. And, you know, I know it's such a cliche now, but it's becoming sort of the new norm with people working from home now. Pretty much kids are back, which obviously is great, but, you know, there's different challenges that might come with taking the kids to school, picking them up, and, you know, how do we embed that? And I think the other thing is not trying to take ourselves too seriously with it as well. So, you know, it's almost uncommon if you don't see kids in the screens, or dogs running around or barking or whatever else. And I think it's great. You know, I went to a mental health breakfast here in Perth recently, and we had a gentleman who actually sort of FaceTimed in from Melbourne, very senior guy, and you could hear his dog barking in the background. We're having a bit of a laugh about it, and I think that everybody, it's very much more socially accepted now, and it's fantastic, because I think it's broken down barriers that perhaps were there previously that now aren't, and that's, you know, certainly from our perspective, that's been great.
Thanks. And Rachel?
Yeah, I thought Gary was talking about me with the kids in the background there, because that's usually what you see over here. I think Max is spot on. You know, it is complex, it's hard, culture always is tough. You have to be really purposeful around what stays and what goes, and I think it's absolutely propelled us into authentic leadership. You know, people are exposing more of their lives, which is so wonderful for building trust. But it's really critical that organisations now, you know, really holistically look at their culture. What are the bits that stay? What are the bits that go? We do need to be more agile as organisations. You know, we need to have people that can pivot into different teams and flex up and down based on where the work is, where it isn't, and that's really key for contact centres. A lot of reflection that we've done is, you know, we have a fantastic long tenure of staff, but because of that, they don't always necessarily want to change and move. But with the pandemic, we've seen they have the ability to do that. They have the capacity to be at home and flex and shift. So absolutely, we will carry that forward into our culture and reassess what that looks like, but it is complex. And, you know, we've reflected on our leaders need that agility as well. And, you know, people will drop off, but you absolutely need that as well, you know, to keep this hybrid model going. And I think it's so wonderful that, you know, you can see all the mess behind me, and I'm a human being like everyone else. And I think that's been really wonderful for people to see, you know, their leaders and their peers in a new light, to keep connections and to keep trust, and just be like, you know, we're all human beings here and we're going through this together. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. And I think that's a very important point, that we are all human, warts and all. The last question, which is probably the one that I'm not the most interested in, but I think will take us forward into 2021. What did you actually need to do differently? And are you continuing with any of the learnings throughout this COVID period? Rachel, I think you were going to go first on this one.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So absolutely, some of the stuff that I just touched on, but do differently, was really around, you know, I'm accountable for recruitment, and we had a really strong ideal candidate profile. We've had to completely adapt that in terms of, we do need people with the capacity to troubleshoot technology when it's not working, you know, people that can swap and change into teams, sometimes on a daily basis. So that ideal candidate profile has changed. The other piece that was really critical was for our leaders, and we had to get really quite prescriptive with our leaders in ways that we've never had to before. We have a promotion from within policy for our frontline leaders. So absolutely, you all know with that comes your technical experts are the ones that get promoted into leadership roles. And we often find that they're not the completely people-orientated people that we want in those roles. And so we've had to say, cameras on, guys, you know, contact your people 3 times a week. These are the times that you're doing it. This is the expectation from above. And we've never had to do that before, because we could see it and monitor it. And now it's been, you know, a bit like telling leaders, this is the checklist of things that you need to do. And that's really not normal for our organisation, but something that was really critical during this period for us to kind of carry forward.
Thank you. So, who's going to say? Max is going to share.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. It's funny, actually, just going back to what Rachel said a minute ago about clutter in the background. I've got a picture that sits up on the wall that I took down, because he likes it up and I don't, and I think it's a bit creepy, so I've had to take it down. I made me giggle when he said that. But anyway, Yeah, look, I think in terms of doing things sort of differently, some of that is probably been just trusting our people more. I think sometimes as an immediate reaction, because we work in such a metricated environment, you can see how many widgets somebody's processing or how many customers or people they're talking to. And I think that sometimes, you know, when you work from home, I can't actually physically see you and see what you're doing. So therefore, you know, you need to make sure you're telling us what you've done, and we can obviously still see the stats on it. But I do think it is trying to build that trust more and having confidence in our people. And I think that probably most organisations, if not all, have really seen the resilience that people have demonstrated. I mean, probably pleasantly surprised again about how people have really stepped up, embraced it, not dismissing some of the challenges that go with that. But I think that's certainly something that I've sort of noticed a lot more. And I think the other probably aspect is just, you know, accepting vulnerability, showing those more. And Rachel mentioned this earlier on in the conversation, but certainly leaders, you know, we don't all have to be. I think the formalities have dropped, which I think is fantastic. But I think it's just a case of just being, you know, very authentic, being real about whatever it is that we're facing and the challenges. And I think the other piece, and again, you know, Rachel did a great job of summarising it, but it's very much around the technology, getting used to the technology, how it works, and trying to teach people, you know, different ways of communicating and engaging as well, which has been, you know, which has been great, but I think it's definitely here to stay. I don't see that sort of disappearing anytime soon. And I think that the final piece for me is just being, you know, again, definitely thinking about the flexibility around, you know, you don't necessarily have to log on at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. It's, you know, what's working right for your schedule. How do we sort of balance that suits your needs versus somebody else's as well? So, you know, the onus on us being as flexible as we can to help, you know, our people as well.
Thanks, Max. And Gary?
I think obviously Max and Rachel have both covered quite a bit. I think probably our learnings in terms of the things we still need to get right is obviously that balance between home and work, and how many days is a good day, number of days to be in the office, and as well how to manage new hires. And I think contact center industry at large is quite used to the buddying type system, where there's a small amount of training at the beginning face-to-face, and then it sort of moves on to a buddy or a succession of buddies to move through a training program and get you used to the technology and phones and, you know, and the rhythm of working. And it's kind of just adapting our training program to be delivered online. And, you know, also as well, you know, working at how the technology can be used to side by side, and then almost, you know, as if somebody was side by siding you. So while I say I don't think we've worked out the exact details, I would definitely say that our team leaders and shift supervisors, that kind of thing, have got much more used to coaching people over the phone, whether it's technology issues. One thing, I guess, if I was to leave kind of any advice to anybody who ever had to do this again, would 100%, if this kind of thing happens, make sure that there's a number of people in your team that can triage phone issues, particularly soft phone issues, and technology issues, because it is very likely your IT team is overwhelmed by those kind of calls. So if you can try and buffer that from your IT team, you're not only helping the company, but you'll get your team members up and running a lot quicker. But be prepared that people are just doing their best, and I think that has definitely been a change of mindset for me. So I kind of go into every conversation or every situation with the outlook that people are doing the best they can with what they've got. You don't know what their situation is. You don't know what has happened to them in the morning. And I think by doing that, it's really stopped kind of the pressure build up, and it shows a bit more, I guess, authenticity. You know, people are just genuinely not, for the most part, trying to do their best. So, and that's definitely helped me with my blood pressure. So, and maybe perhaps some other people who might have had to deal with a different type of interaction in the past.
Thank you. Look, Gary, that was just so real and so raw. It was lovely. So what do we learn? And I want to thank all three of you for sharing your war stories, warts and all. Congratulations once again to Rachel and recoveriescorp for coming out of the dark and into the light in Melbourne. And I know, Gary, you've got some of the team based in Victoria as well, so you share a similar challenge So what did we learn? We needed to learn about troubleshooting. We need to learn about adaptability, flexibility, being human, being authentic, disciplined and trust. And it's okay to bring your dog to work or have your creepy picture in the background, Max. And for you, Rach, to have the kids running around. And for me, it's non-cats. So with that, I thank you once again. We're about to go to a short break before we hear from our final speaker for today. Thank you once again.